Okay, good evening. Good evening. I'd like to call the school board meeting for Monday, November 23rd, 2015 to order, please. Roll call, please.
Bandy Creek here.
Alrod here.
Van Lannen here.
Lauka here.
Williams here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Not?
Just that staffing one that I've done with us.
Okay.
Brian Michelle.
Yep. Consent agenda item.
13B.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Citizens and their delegations. Is there anybody here this evening that'd like to speak to anything that's not on the agenda? Anything that's not on the agenda?
Let me put this in here.
Go ahead.
I just want to make a formal announcement. This is not news to anyone in this room, but I want to take a moment to formally confirm that I won't be running or seeking re-election in April. The first message I want to convey is that of gratitude. I am very thankful to have served for 15 years on the school board. It's been a very positive experience. And if I'm perfectly honest, the reason I walked in this door was I was super frustrated about the delay in the elementary school referendum, and that got me to walk in the door, and then there was no walking back out. But the real reason that I chose to serve for so long is I do believe that education is one of the best investments we can make in our society. And that is what has kept me here for all of these years. I encourage anyone who values education and looks at our students and sees the incredible potential in each and every one of them to consider serving on the board. As our schools grow more diverse, it's really important that our staff and our leadership begin to mirror our student population. So I'd love for that to call to a more diverse group up here. I think opinions and different viewpoints are very important. With an open seat, if not 2 open seats in April, this is a perfect opportunity to run for something as opposed to running against a person. So really step out of your comfort zone and step up here. The one qualification I brought to this was my belief in education. And if you've got that, you belong right here, and you will learn so much along the way. You're going to gain far more than you give, that's for sure. So I think the deadline's early January, which might not be a well-known fact.
January 5th.
January 5th to file. So that will be here before you know it, but consider it, and we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jenny.
What's that?
I said I'll wait till next time.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Going to 2, Bright Lights presentation. Mr. Nelson, would you like to introduce our guest?
I can, or Tammy if
Tammy?
we've got Carrie and Caitlin and Adam here, but I won't steal Tammy's thunder.
No, it would have been just fine too.
Actually, yeah.
Our Bright Lights presentation tonight is a group of people from Ashwaubenon High School. Carrie came to me in the spring with an idea of how to get some of our students at the high school more engaged in physical activities. So she piloted this new idea that we're trying for the school year. She has a few students she brought along with her to talk a little bit about it, and she has a video. Amy Muckerhide, one of our special ed teachers, was also going to be here. She had a baby yesterday, so she's in the hospital. So I think that's it. Absolutely, absolutely. So Carrie, I'll let you take it away.
First of all, thanks for having us here. We have Caitlin, Scar, Adam Dill, and we have an associate from Amy Muckerhide's class, Sherry Art here. We're going to start off with a video with some class activities that kind of show what we do in class. We meet twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and this class is going to meet all year. Like Tammy said, this is a pilot class. We just started it. They might think I'm kind of hard on them sometimes. But the goal is to really focus on fitness and moving. And I'll explain a little bit more about that after, but I'll let the video go. The volume's going to go up and down because we had some volume editing issues, but...
What's your name, sir? Noah Wesley. Do you have fun in functional fitness?
Yes.
What is fun about that class? Yeah. And what's the favorite thing that you've done so far? Different exercises? When you do your circuits in the weight room? All right. Do you think you're getting stronger? How do you know that? You can feel yourself getting stronger. You probably look stronger. Okay. Do you like to exercise?
Yes.
And how do you feel when you exercise?
Happy.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share about class? Thank you. functional fitness class.
Yeah, I like to walk, you know.
You like to walk in the gym class? Okay. Do you think you're getting stronger?
No, I'm not stronger.
Are you getting stronger though, or in better shape, you think?
Better shape.
That's good. Do you like to exercise?
Yeah.
And how do you feel when you exercise?
Good.
Does it make you happy?
Yes.
Anything else you want to share?
No.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Nikki, and what do I do? Why not sugar? Why not the lights?
Are you getting stronger in gym class?
Not sure. I'm not.
Do you like to exercise?
By exercise, I'm not much of an exercise person.
Do you have fun in classes? And what's your favorite thing you've done in gym class so far?
Going on the lights that stay bikes.
All the bikes in the weight room?
No, the bikes are outside.
Oh, the tricycle. Awesome. Anything else? Thank you.
All right, well, that's our video. It's been a lot of fun trying to get this together. So let's talk about the class makeup. It's part of the 1.5 credits that is required to graduate for Phi Ed. Like I said before, it's fitness and movement based. There are minimal concepts related to sports. Key components are cardiorespiratory endurance, strength training, coordination, and balance training. I put a lot of time into researching what has been the best for students with special needs, and I want to put them in an environment where they're successful. And in 2 months, there's been a lot of successes, This is a quote from Harvard Medical School psychiatrist John Ratey. Exercise is the single best thing you can do for your brain in terms of mood, memory, and learning. First point I'd like to make, it improves learning. Exercise increases the level of brain chemicals called growth factors, which help make new brain cells and establish new connections between brain cells and help us to learn. Exercise lifts depression and improves mood. It keeps the brain fit. Exercise keeps your brain fit and active, fending off memory loss and keeping skills like vocabulary retrieval strong. That point on vocab and memory was extremely evident, and you saw the students working on a muscle man, identifying muscles. Almost all students got 100% on a written test on muscle identification, which was just a combination of activities with exercise and knowing those muscles while they exercise. It's pretty awesome to see that. It's a pilot. I would love to see this expand to daily routine and potentially for students 6th through 12th grade. Some results so far. All students have experienced some sort of weight loss up to 10 pounds. Now this is, like I said, every other day for 2 months, so we've had roughly 14 sessions. So I think that's outstanding itself. Students have learned their muscles. Majority have gotten 100% on a written test. We continue to monitor cardio and strength improvements along with body composition. You saw the picture of Adam with the clipboard. They're required to count their repetitions and record how much weight they lift and log that information. Socially, much more comfortable. In the beginning, I just had little candy incentives, just requiring them to tell me how they feel. How did that feel? How did that exercise feel? To count your repetitions, to tell me how much weight you just lifted. So socially, they're becoming more outgoing with myself and with each other. Identified needs for gross and fine motor skill, proprioceptive and movement-based patterns, simple patterns like a skip, shuffle, squat, and spatial awareness. We've used weight training program to increase the amount of force the child used to perform motor skills. And when you use force and different skills, you actually feel what muscles are supposed to be used. Activating muscles, Caitlin's going to show us in a little bit a couple of exercises that we do. Many activities make us use the limbs that we're supposed to use. Push-ups, battle ropes, pushing on the scooter boards. Those all send positive vibes for proprioception. Boost self-esteem. You can see the smiles on their faces. They feel successful and they feel improvements. So I'm going to have Adam, Sherry, why don't you come up and share a few things that you've noticed. Sherry's with these students in academic-based classes.
Right. We are seeing better attendance with these kids. There was a stretch there where it was almost knocking on the door to get some of these kids in, and they're showing up every day and, raring to go for it. And so we're seeing a more positive attitude with these kids towards it. Another big thing we focus with these kids, because we carry it into the classroom with them, is what are you eating during the lunch when you go down? What are you having when you go home at night? What type of healthy foods are you eating? And now they're starting to come in and say, oh, Mrs. Janker's gonna be mad at me because I had a soda last night. You know, so we're starting to get them to understand that there's better choices than just picking the junk food and the soda, and you know, and they're becoming a lot more aware of what's going into their system and how it's making them feel so much better that way too.
Kaylin, how about you come up front here? We'll help you get a band on. Now, a lot of athletes have done a lot of these exercises. If they've been working with me, these are just muscle activation exercises. And what muscle are we going to activate? What muscle is the big one that we always work on?
Maximus?
Maximus, yes, please, Maximus, good girl. All right, so Caitlin can put the band on, and she's going to show us a couple exercises, and Caitlin's going to have a chance to share some things. So let's do the first one. How about just a basic squat hold? How about a squat hold, Kate? Good girl. Okay, where do you feel that?
Right here.
All right, you got it. Okay, how about lateral steps, lateral shuffle? Can you show us the lateral shuffle, lateral steps, side steps? Good. Okay, with the bands on. And a lot of these are before we even warm up, we're doing these exercises. Okay? Good job, Caitlin. Okay, let's let Kate talk a little bit. Caitlin, how do you feel about functional fitness?
Getting healthy and eating more fruits and vegetables, losing weight. So,
How much weight have you lost so far?
8.
8 pounds. How about when we do our cardio? How are you feeling doing your mile run and exercises on the bikes?
Pushing it.
She gets mad at us a lot.
How about strength? Do you feel any stronger?
Yeah.
How do you know?
My legs are stronger and my arms.
Can you feel it?
Yeah.
You feel it in your body? Good.
I can feel my legs.
How do you like how do you feel about exercise in general?
Good.
Do we have fun?
Yeah.
Come on. Okay, Adam, come on.
All right.
Adam's time to shine.
All right.
Okay, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, myself. I'm going to Ashwaubenon High School for seniors.
Adam, do you like exercising?
Yes.
What's your favorite part about exercising?
Treadmill.
Treadmill. What do you do on a treadmill?
Running.
Do you do a lot of running?
Yes.
Yes. Do you like to lift weights?
Yes.
What kinds of exercises do you like to do?
Weight. Push-ups.
Push-ups. Awesome.
Yes.
Were there any other exercises that you like to do in class?
Yes.
What other? Can you tell me one more?
Squats, bicep curls.
Bicep curls. Awesome. Very good. Adam, do we know our muscles pretty good?
Yes.
You be able to show me muscles and that we're getting stronger?
Yes.
Yes. Very good. Very good. How about one more thing, Adam? What did you think about biking out on the track?
Oh, I would go around the park field.
Yes, we went all around down by Parkview.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you would like to share with the group?
Yeah.
What would you like to
Go
share?
around the track.
Go around on the bikes at Parkview.
Yes.
Yeah. One more thing. Do we have fun in class, Adam? Do we have a lot of fun?
Yes.
You bet. So this is just a couple examples of what we do. It's been awesome so far. Kids love it. I love it. It's challenging, but it's very rewarding because we see results, and the kids see them and they feel them. So that's a functional fitness.
Ready?
Good job. Okay. Whenever we get these presentations, it's hard to go on to the rest of our agenda. It's like, that's right. We'll move on to consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the regular meeting held on Monday, October 26th, the schedule of checks written 10/20 to 11/16, staffing resignation of Jacob Hintz from his full-time night custodian position at the high school, effective November 27th. And new hire of Tricia Wittig, the full-time educational associate, special education aide at Cormier. And then we got 40 co-curricular contracts and our audit report.
Make a motion to approve it?
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. H, superintendent's report. Oh.
Okay, I want to do that up here because I have a special award I want to start with. Before I do that, I just want to compliment Carrie Jancourt on the leadership that she's taken. I wish they were still in the room to do this. This has been sort of a dream and a mission of Carrie's, and she said lightly that this is challenging, but obviously a whole new venture for us. And it's something we'll be talking about administratively in terms of how we can staff this and how we can continue the program like this as it fits in the mix for the whole Phi-Ed curriculum. But literally hours of consulting and working with a lot of different people. So kudos to the Phi-Ed department, especially to Carrie for taking the initiative to bring that forward. I'd like to ask Dean to come forward, please, and Brad Taylor. You're going to have to take off your other hat over there, Brad. This past, about 2 weeks ago at the Wisconsin School Public Relations Association, we learned that Ashwaubenon, and both Ashwaubenon and Dean won an award, and it's called a Spectrum Award. Wisconsin School Public Relations Association, what they do is they honor and recognize various school districts in the state that do exemplary things in the areas of public relations. And you probably aren't familiar maybe with Dean's face so much here, but Dean is he's the Director of Educational Television Productions out of northeastern Wisconsin. I believe you work on the UWGB campus.
Correct.
You're housed there, but you're representing this entire region. Brad and Dean work together, and it's too bad Adam snuck out of here a minute ago. The video that we submitted was the video of Adam and his mother, and you remember that particular video. I just want to congratulate both of you, and Dean, I want to thank you. I think it was about a year ago at the local CISA region here. We had talked as area superintendents about the many positive things that happen in education that we often don't take the time or a few minutes to celebrate. So school districts throughout our region created a number of videos that were maybe 30-second, was it 30-second video that was actually broadcasted? A minute video that was broadcasted, but then, as you know, the school districts had a longer version that they displayed on their website. So thank you to Dean and thank you, Brad, for your leadership to help pull the Ashwaubenon videos together. I'd just like to present each of them with a plaque from the Wisconsin School Public Relations Association, and it reads 2015 Spectrum Award of Merit. So to Brad Taylor and to Dean Leisgang, congratulations and thanks for all the leadership.
And you know, this video is all because of the things that happen in the classrooms. Without the great things our teachers do in the classrooms in the schools, there would be no video. So let's not forget that too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks to these gentlemen. I've done 84 of these videos so far, and a lot of times it's the best and brightest, which is great. You know, that's a great thing. But you know, the Adam story was very moving and impactful. So I congratulate you for picking a special education story among yours.
Well, you're very welcome. In fact, this past week at the Ashwaubenon Business Association, we started with a student on both ends of the spectrum. And that's how we wanted the presentation, as we were talking about what should the story of our district be. One of the things we talk about is moving and growing every kid, no matter where they are in their development and their growth and learning. So thanks for the leadership. You came. I mean, I saw another one on Channel 11 before I came over. I didn't catch the district, so they're still out there viewing. If you turn on Channel 11, it's usually right around the news hour, correct? That they're showing
From 5 to
these?
6 and then 9 to 10.
5 to 6 and 9 to 10. So very good. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Just to continue with our building project, a couple of other agenda items that we have on there. Project is pretty much right on schedule. All the footings, Keith was at the meeting this morning and mentioned to me that sounds like everything is pretty much on schedule. All the footings should be good to go by the end of this week or so. And if you haven't driven by the auditorium to see what's happening with the block and the wall, weather sure has been real good for us. So everything is right on schedule, and I kind of tease them with the warm weather. I'm hoping that I'd love to see it be a month ahead of schedule, of course, by the time we open school. again, just to the public, those facilities, the pool and the auditorium is slated to be completed approximately in October, and then I see some steel on the site at the community center this morning going by there, and that's scheduled to be completed approximately in July. I wanted to also just highlight a couple of other, we talk about quality partnerships in the village, and it was kind of neat to hear Mike talk about partnerships at the ABA meeting, the Business Association meeting this past week. And then Brad and I also had a PowerPoint where we shared a number of partnerships. When I asked the principals occasionally just to give me highlights of things that are happening in the buildings, Pete shared another one that was kind of neat. It was a kickball public safety partnership. I call it Kicked Into Action, where a number of our public safety officers participated with the students with a kickball with Cops Week, and that was the week of November 2nd. So I want to thank our public safety officers for the engagement that they carved out of their schedule to be with our students. I also congratulate Pioneer for winning the Walk to School Grand Prize this year. They were the winners, and what they ended up, I guess that includes an award of what, $800 to $1,000 that can be attributed to safety equipment. Is that
Correct.
right, Pete? So a nice award there. I also want to thank a couple of Parkview teachers, Phil Layden, for beginning a robotics club. This is a club that he's volunteering and beginning after school for students at Parkview. Also to Mike Smits, he's actually bringing it's a Japanese cartoon club that he's putting together. And it's called Anime, a Japanese cartoon club. So they meet after school, and again, he's volunteering to put that together. I want to thank Jill Kieslich and our entire 612 teachers on the gradual release training that went on, that leadership. It was neat to me, again, to just witness a number of teachers that stepped forward and helped with breakout sessions. There were a lot of really interesting conversations that happened at that in-service. They did what's called a fishbowl activity at one part of that, and it allowed people to engage and tap in and out of the conversation and weigh in on all kinds of different issues having to do with assessment to just research-based instructional strategies. We've been studying Hattie's research on instruction, and it's creating a lot of dialogue for all of us, myself included, as we looked at what we think is really making an impact versus what the research shows after studying millions of teachers in the classrooms. It's a pretty extensive study, but thanks to everyone that helped extend all the learning for all of us, all the staff members for that in-service. And I just wanted to recognize 9 Parkview students. They were recently involved in the St. Norbert's Honors Band on Saturday, November 7th, and that's Kobe Harris, Logan Chart, Ben Balin, Hannah Swan, Emma and Lauren Fisher, and Ann Pfeiffer, Madeline Miner, and Medina Boucher. So congratulations to all those students who participated. Are there any other questions under the superintendent's report? It's a pretty tough act to follow those kids. So,
I just want to give a shout out to Ken Bukowski for the effort that he's doing on raising funds for our projects. You got another platinum donor this last week, him and Mike. They're up almost $500,000 now, I think. So, I mean, of raising funds. So, I mean, and they're still going. So, it's like a full-time job for him, but he's going after it. So,
I agree, Mike and Ken. That was quite a gift, and that I know we're prepared to announce where some of those are coming from.
I know that some of their platinum donors. I mean, we got PCM Credit Union, Aurora Hospital, Bellin Hospital. I know I'm going to forget them now. Who's the other? There's another big one.
Paper Converting was a big one, as well as PCM. I think they both.
I think it's just PCM.
It's a PCM?
Yeah.
Okay.
PCMC was $100,000.
Okay.
Right.
And that's a credit union, not the
Okay.
Right.
And the others were $50,000 each.
Outstanding.
And when we did meet with daycare, I just a little short note. One of the doctors there was on a local school board, I'm not going to reveal who it was, and he remarked how well we work together and the envy of having that kind of relationship and with the school district and the village, so. I think that might have been part of the reason, because we sort of dwelled on that. I think it might have been part of the reason we came up with something, so.
Very nice. A lot to be thankful for.
Yep.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, thank you. Move on to discussion items. One, bylaw and policy updates. First reading, we have a pack of them here. And before we, I don't know if we want to go through them, but if you have any, do we have any questions on anything, or is there? I'm not gonna, if we don't have to go through, if there is no questions, then I'm not gonna go through them individually.
I think this is the first time I've seen where things are, it's usually just updates required by law, but there's a number that are optional, it seems.
Yeah, so that's, I think.
And I don't know if there's, we obviously have to decide one way or the other, but I don't know that I have a strong feeling on those.
Like the student motor vehicles?
That was,
Using it.
a lot of the school districts up north, kids, it's not uncommon for them to bring their snowmobiles to school instead of their
Correct.
Yeah.
cars. And so these districts have requested there be something in this policy. It's up to us whether we want the snowmobile part in this.
Wouldn't that affect them being able to get it here? And how they would get it here?
The trailer.
Encourage them to bring this.
I don't know if we necessarily need something like that.
I would agree.
You can't run a snowmobile on the city streets.
Right.
So, how are you gonna do it?
And on the fourth and the fifth one in on that top row, it's just a minor thing. They're putting in the word principal, but it's not capitalized. On 5514.01 and 5730.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
There was one other that I noticed on 0140 on page 7. It refers to board members providing new board members with a copy of the collective bargaining agreement. Obviously, in that case, I think it should be a copy of the most recent handbook. That's one that I don't think they included in the change.
Did you say page 7?
We don't know page 7. What's the policy number for that?
It's 0142.5. Yeah, 0142.5. And then if you go to page 7 of 15, it's right in the middle. Zero 0142.7.
I do not see that.
You got a lot of information right in front of you here.
You mean a copy of the current negotiated agreement? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Which should be handbook now in your case, obviously.
It's under orientation. It's 0142.7 orientation. On the top, it'll say 40, page 706, 7 of 15.
Okay.
Just a language cleanup. It would be.
Anything else? Right now? We'll get another kick at this next month, so. Okay. It's just the first reading, so we don't have to have anything on that. We'll move on to discussion item number 2, alternative expulsion hearing policy. Tammy, you wanna take that?
I've been working with the administration since 12 about some of the students that have been expelled in the past or would consider possible expulsion for. Something that a number of districts in the state are going to is doing an alternative expulsion hearing which they call an abeyance agreement. So if a student makes a first-time offense and it's deemed that it's something that a student should have somewhat of a second chance on, we could do an abeyance agreement where we put specific things in place for that student based on the individual situation that comes up, that a student would have to do in order to remain in school. For example, we had a computer violation last year, a technology violation, which was the first offense, but it was expellable, and we did expel the student. We could, if we had an abeyance agreement in place, say the student would be able to remain in school, but there would be no technology use, and there may be counseling or something else, for example, put in place for that student. If it was a student, similar, we had a case a number of years ago where it was a student who was caught smoking marijuana at school and was expelled for 6 months. It could be a situation where it's the first time offense, and rather than just expel the student for it, we could do an abeyance agreement where the student would be required to get alcohol and drug counseling, would have to go through parent paid counseling services for that, along with random drug testing that the parent would be responsible paying for, and the student would be able to remain in school if they were able to abide by that. They'd have to attend school or whatever other stipulations we put on that. The reason for doing it is to try and keep kids in school and to put some proactive strategies in place to get them help for some of the issues that they have, rather than just expelling the student and not having the student at school. And then they're able to come back. For example, the drug situation we had a number of years ago, the student can come back, but we don't have any way of knowing if the student has gotten any type of treatment, if the student is still using anything. They're just able to come back. This way it gives an option where the student can stay in school if they're willing to get help. The student and the parent have the right to say they don't want to go along with the abeyance agreement, and then the student would go up for expulsion.
I actually think this is probably one of the most important things that's come to the board in a long time and deserves a bit of attention. And I think I say that because we have so little wiggle room in our expulsion policy right now that even when as a board we want to do something, it has seemed like we haven't had the opportunity. What I'm having trouble with, though, is that it's not to not trust our administrators, but at administrator discretion. And it seems as though perhaps all students, it should be considered for all first-time offenders, perhaps, or something that's just universally applied without question. And that's really to protect our administrators as well as...
Where you don't pick and choose.
Yeah, and I say that, I do think that's a protection. So that's one of the things that, and I know this is up for discussion, which is why I feel free to give open input. The other is, when I start to read, we'll offer an abeyance at the cost of the parent, which I understand the desire that the parent pay for counseling. It also tells me that the students in our district who might not be able to afford that will suddenly be pushed toward an expulsion because they simply can't afford to purchase an abeyance, basically is what it comes down to. So there's just, this is a big issue, and it's driven by an inflexible expulsion policy. And I think as a board, we really need to be serious about this and not patch it. Does that make sense?
But what, do we have to do this? Is this by state statute, or is this something that we can, because I agree, I mean, I sometimes it's nice to have the flexibility as the board, but I don't know if the administration, you know, we want to know what it is, and something that you might think is the right thing to do by having this agreement in place. We might think, you know, I don't know if we want us to consider or not.
Well, I think it depends on the nature of the offense.
Right.
For example, in the statute, it defines clearly what weapons are. To use that example, I don't believe you have the option. You can make an exception is the way it's worded, but typically if it's weapon related on school campus, that's typically an expellable offense.
So is
There's
this
probably some exception to that, but
this abeyance agreement, can you go through all the process of doing everything that's required in a in a expulsion and bring it to the board, and the board has the discretion to do it, or is it done by strictly administration before it gets to the board?
It would, the way we have it proposed, it would happen, so let's say Dirk and Brian at the high school have a student that, does an expellable offense. They would contact me, we would talk about it and see, is it the first time offense? Is it something that warrants an abeyance? And we would have a discussion around that. In most cases, we would go that route unless it's something obviously gun-related, that we need to put up, students up for expulsion for. There's no wiggle room with that if a student has a gun. The knives are a little bit more questionable depending on, you know, the purpose of having it, were they using it, was it a pocket knife, was it a 6-inch blade knife, you know, what are we looking at with that as well?
So do you pick and choose where you can put this abeyance agreement in?
No, we would typically have a meeting then with the parent and the student and talk about the expellable offense, the seriousness of it, and then we would talk about the option to do an abeyance agreement, what that would look like. And we would notify the board that a student is up for expulsion, but we're looking at going the abeyance route at that point.
And what is the cost of the counseling?
That
You
would
know,
depend
with
on what kind of counseling, if counseling is warranted, what kind of counseling, the random drug testing, that just depends on when and how that happens. I don't have the cost.
So it's really, could be variable depending on what the situation.
If it's daily counseling, weekly counseling, but it would be very, very clear expectations that within the next 15 days or the next 30 days, you will provide us documentation that you are involved in counseling and how frequently it is, and we'd be able to communicate with the counselor to see what progress is being made towards whatever the student is working on as well. And then obviously have specific stipulations that if you have to attend school, you aren't allowed to have this drugs or weapons on you at school, whatever it might be based on the situation. There's a lot of variables depending on what the expellable offense is.
I think when you read the very first sentence of the policy that was proposes, pre-expulsion is to be utilized only in cases where administration deems that it is in the best interest of the student to have the opportunity to stay in school. To me, that's 100%. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I don't know what, unless they were at their own, like unless their health was at risk walking in our doors or something. I don't know where it wouldn't have been. So it seems, I don't know. I wonder if, could it be written so that abeyance is one of the things that's brought to the board? Like one of the options, so this is the administrative recommendation, is that we offer this opportunity? Or
Good question,
like
legally.
either do this or that for 1 year and revisit?
I would agree with that too. I think that's a good idea. I would like to still have that control, being able to have that, because ultimately it's gonna come back to us, I think.
Well, the only
If we have
reason-
that option, because we struggle, there's a lot of times when we struggle, when we have these expulsion hearings, and it's like, we don't have an option of doing something like that. And if it is, it's really a difficult decision.
The only reason though, if the administration decides to do this, the only reason this would come back to you would be if there would be another offense, and now they're on the second, then it would come to the board, and it's still the board's decision in terms of an expulsion.
So should our policy be rewritten so that first offenses are dealt with in this manner, with the exception of weapons?
I don't know, I would have to think more about, would there be other exceptions? That would be the concern I would have, as far as drugs and the nature of drugs and dealing on campus. If we would get into activity like that, I don't know that I want to just limit it to weapons.
Okay.
Because what if there's an assault? I would think that would be,
Given the nature of the assault, that's another example. There are other things I'm sure we're not thinking about that, that one size that fits all, it makes me nervous a little bit. But I just think the concept of we want to do what's best in the best interest of students and the safety of everyone involved, but know that there is this option to try to turn someone's life around. I think that's what we're trying to do here. But I don't know that, I can speak knowing the administrators well enough. They're gonna go to bat for the kids, say, I can't think of a situation where they didn't operate in that sense where, the technology one was unique. I think that was the first time that was a first time experience. And actually,
So what is our return rate? When we've had, I know we haven't had that many expulsions in the time that I've been here.
That's a good question.
But what is our return rate as far as after the suspension is served? How many come back? Or do they end up going off to other districts, or is it?
I'd say most all come back.
Most all come back,
We
okay.
had one last year that did not come back, but otherwise, yes, they usually do come back.
So from a success standpoint or positive outcomes, I mean, would you say as they come back, are they?
I don't think there's anything positive about keeping a kid out of school.
Right.
And so I think what this is an attempt to do is get away from that zero tolerance policy with the no flexibility, but providing a policy obviously that's comfortable in giving a kid a second chance depending on the situation without having to go to the extreme. It's kind of like putting the restrictions in place prior to an expulsion rather than as a condition to be reinstated. And they're doing that while we're providing an educational program for the student, depending on, is it safe for that student to be in school? Is it safe for the other students to be in school? And the nature of the violation. So.
And that was something I was just gonna ask is do we have some increased liability as a result of this? That what if, you go through this process and something else happens? Or are we saying that you as administrators will be able to determine which offenses should go through this and shouldn't go through this?
Right. To speak to the first part of your question, as long as this the situation has been addressed and we followed a process that's been approved by the board in terms of abeyance and what it is, and there's restrictions put in place, I don't believe there's liability. Many districts have an abeyance policy in place, doing something similar to what's being proposed today. So I don't know that that's necessarily the issue. The issue is being consistent in that what's good for one student is good for all, and making sure that in terms of enforcement, drugs, weapons, that whole thing, is we have an obligation to the other 1,048 kids that are in that school to ensure that's a safe learning environment for everyone. But then how do we balance that with working with the student who's made a mistake? And a lot of times you go to intent. What was the intent of all this? Was it a foolish mistake? Are we dealing with a student with AODA issues? Are we, looking at the total child and trying to come to a conclusion as to how on earth did this happen, and how can we help try to fix it so that we can get a student back in school as soon as possible in a positive environment? But then how can we do that in a way where there's an accountability piece, but then also that counseling piece and that supportive piece, so that the student can get re-engaged and get their education. So that's the main thing. I think when we talk about abeyance, the accountability piece, and then how can we keep the student engaged positively and pursue their diploma?
When you're saying too, it's interesting because they've got statistics on here on this being a trend. And so in 1992-93, approximately 400 students were expelled statewide. And then 2007-8, 1,400 students were expelled statewide. And then you're saying some public schools already have this in place.
Right.
I'd be curious to know what the data is like now, because 2007, 2008, that was a long time ago. So if some schools in the state have it in line, do we see the numbers still getting worse?
There is a study that's actually back from, I want to say 2002, but maybe it's not that far back. I'd have to look at the dates that I can share with you, that has 5 or 6 different school districts in the state who talked about their actual expulsion rate. Green Bay was one of them. That what the rate was before abeyance and then how it went down after abeyance and kind of what they're doing. And they're doing all different types of abeyance agreements. So it's an interesting, interesting report that I can share with you if you're interested in seeing that too.
So is this policy modeled after theirs? Does it stay out of the boardroom, their abeyance agreements?
Most of them do, yes. It happens prior, the student is put up for expulsion and the board is notified of a possible expulsion pending a meeting with the parent and the student to talk about a possible abeyance. So it does start the process, just the abeyance agreement puts it on hold.
Okay.
And then if some part of that abeyance agreement is not followed by the student, then it just proceeds like a regular expulsion would proceed.
Okay.
So it's not an easy process. It's not like we call the student into Mr. Nelson's office and we just say to the student, yeah, you know, it's a little slap on your hands. It's a big deal. They know that they're put up for expulsion. They're going to meet with us. Dr. Haynes will most likely be involved in that discussion and they're going to know how serious it is. And the stipulations are going to be pretty serious. It's not going to be anything that's taken lightly.
Even that clarification makes me a little more comfortable in that the beginning of the procedure is the same for all students. They're brought toward expulsion and then this is put in place. But
Well, and back to Ginny's topic, I wonder if there's any statistics or data on these schools that have it. Is the school system paying for any of the support for these students?
The school system does not pay. It's all up to the family to do that.
Okay.
And it's part of that belief is the whole idea of the school isn't the only entity that needs to work with the child. The parent needs to step up and take some ownership and really hold them responsible as well. I get the financial side of it. That's a big issue. And a lot of times with our families, we find that the social workers are probably already involved with some of these situations too, so they can help get families set up with different resources. What the social workers struggle with is they provide a lot of support and services to parents, but then the parents don't always follow through with doing it. So how can we bring that together for the kids so they can get those services? Another thing we're looking at doing in Brown County, some of the other directors are talking with community agencies to see if we can get some more mental health services into the schools. So instead of the parents having to pick kids up and get the kids to mental health services, we would have a location within the school district where kids could go within their building to get some of those services. It's something that we're talking about right now. It isn't anything formalized, but we definitely are having meetings with different county groups to talk about doing that too, just to make it more accessible for kids, especially our middle school and high school kids who the parents aren't always as involved as they possibly can be because of their limited resources as well.
On this, I mean, what was in front of us here right now is the, expulsion hearing procedure alternative, if you will. Do we have anything written as far as policy where this would, how we would institute it, I guess? Or,
like our actual procedure of what we would do?
Right. No, well, no, I mean, where you have the authority to do this.
Somebody written up the policy, for us to approve.
Right. Well, this is just a procedure right now. It's not a policy saying administration has the right to look at this if, under these circumstances, first-time offense, if it's a weapons policy they don't have, or whatever the stipulations are that it has a possibility of putting this agreement in place. I mean, we don't have anything that, all we got is this procedure. We don't have saying, here's where is recommended, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the most that we've had from Neola is what's in front of you. We certainly could contact them for more information. We had discussed, when I talked with Brian and Keith about bringing this to the board, typically we don't bring procedures to the board, but in this kind of a situation, I didn't feel comfortable, and nor did Keith or Brian, doing something like this and putting this in place without having board approval that this is a possible step that you're interested in pursuing, just because it is bigger than just what we typically do.
I could certainly contact Neil and see if they have
I'd like to see
an
where
overarching policy that ties to this. Definitely, we could do that.
You know, I mean, this is a first reading, if you will, and it's not even a reading, it's just a procedure, really.
It is, yeah.
So, I mean, if we have a policy on, you know, where it's possible, or where it should be used, or try to be used, or.
So we have a meeting in 3 weeks, 2 weeks?
We do.
Would you have something available by then, or would we wait until January?
I think we can try and have something
Try.
for that.
Sure.
I think the intention is really important and really positive.
Right.
I just want to make sure it is universally applied and that students have access, equal access to this option under a similar condition. Does
I
that
just
make
want to
sense?
make sure that the administration feels comfortable making that decision and look liability-wise and everything too. I mean, I look at that and it's like, well, do you want to make that call if, or not, you know? I mean, do you want to give us that call? I mean, it's up to, you know, it's.
You know, and I hear that, and I guess I think, you know, the administration is a lot closer to it than we are.
Right.
And understanding what the situations could turn out to be. So I guess I feel fairly comfortable giving the administration that, that latitude or that leeway as long as it's proper and meets all of the policies and procedures. So,
Well, why don't we see what we can come up with, if they have any formal, you know, where we can use this, and, or, you know, what kind of policies, or what kind of offenses that you can use it.
Okay.
It might be helpful. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to action items. Election of clerk. That time of the year again, elections are coming up, and I think this, we usually approve Jennifer as our.
I make a motion to approve Jennifer Bauer as our designation of clerk of elections.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 2, HS wrestling mat. Nick?
Sure. Brian talked a little bit about partnerships, and certainly with a lot of our athletic needs, partnerships are needed. And our wrestling program asked me in the spring about new wrestling mats, and I said, well, I don't have that on my radar for a need. Help me understand what you're looking for, and the cost of a wrestling mat and that, and how are you going to fundraise for that. And Jody and Andy Kay talked to me later in the summer and said they were able to raise $14,000 from partners, businesses that support wrestling, Best Built, Northeast Insurance, PCM Credit Union, and Hellron Oil Company. And I said, hey, that's great. Let me get me the mat, what you want it to look like, and then that came in with those logos on there, and I thought, hey, wait a second, I better check our policy and what that means with advertisement on a wrestling mat. And certainly I found policy 9700.01, and it talked about direct advertising and on school equipment. So I guess I'm looking for approval of the wrestling mat that you have in front of you with that I sent out to Jennifer last week or 2 weeks ago with those companies on there that were generous enough to donate for a new mat. Our current mat is, I asked Jody today, I said, how old is our current one? And he said it's as old as the field house, so it's about 15 years old. And those need to be reconditioned every 4 or 5 years, and there's a cost to that too. New mat that we're proposing will be used for competition only, just for the first year, and probably for a couple of years before the guys are on it at practice. We'd still use the old mats upstairs for practice. So I guess I'm seeking approval of that mat. With any questions I can answer.
No, there's no district funds that are put towards this?
No.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the mat.
I will abstain.
A second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to say thank you again to the 4 businesses that stepped forward
Absolutely.
and helped with the partnership. Thank you.
3, technology plan. Jamie.
All right, I shared with, through Jody, our digital learning plan. I just want to give you guys a quick history. When I came into this role last year, I knew that our technology plan that we had expired, so I contacted DPI and said, I'm new to this role, help me out. And they replied back with an email and said, hey, don't worry about it, you don't have to do it anymore. Due to state, federal legislation, we no longer require a tech plan. I said, great. Just to ease your mind, we still did most of the things that were required in the tech plan. We still had our 5-year budget plan. Jill and I still talked about instructional goals. But to be honest, the plan was pretty cumbersome. It was a Google site that we had to create and use. It had multiple tabs. And talking to the DPI, what they found is that very few people actually looked at it after it was approved because it was kind of a antiquated, cumbersome piece of a plan, basically. So once the funding requirement went away, the DPI kind of removed it from schools because they realized it really wasn't a useful document. So we kind of did our own thing last year that worked for us. Then this summer, it was about July, Scott Truskowski was actually on a Google Plus page talking about something with our content filter, and DPI was on it, and he noticed a thread that said, you have to have a tech plan. So he forwarded it to me and said, you know this, and I actually forwarded the email from DPI that said we didn't need a plan, and said, do we need a plan? And they said, yeah, due to state and federal legislation, you now need a plan. I'm like, well, great. So talking through about 3 emails, the DPI is going to be coming up with a new format, which they said should be ready by fall of next year, that all districts are going to have to basically submit their plan to. What they suggested was, in the meantime, to come up with just a plan that documents everything that we have, get it board approved, and have it in place. So what I shared with you is basically our instructional goals, kind of a brief budget, device surveys, everything we did last year that would have fit into our normal plan, as well as our library collections that is required to be board approved as well. That being said, we're pretty sure that probably next fall or 2017 we'll have to do it all over again to meet DPI's new format. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. I could go through it if you'd like, but there isn't a whole lot in there that you haven't seen.
So all the objectives are like new, because I see on your timeline you got 2015.
And on, yeah, we just extended it. Yep. So they're based off of last year. They're all the objectives are mostly tied to ISTE standards, which is what we've tied our information tax standards to in the past. Any questions?
Any comments, questions? No?
I just think it's funny that you say, do you have too many in your classroom?
That was unique. One of the things we did do is we did a staff survey, and we also did a device audit. And that was one of the things we looked at is, do we have equitable, sustainable access in all of our buildings? And kind of that was a big part of that was because of that staff survey.
Okay. I just can't imagine someone saying, yeah, there's way too many iPads in my classroom, but that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that we've gone down, and I know there's been some discussion about one-to-one devices and stuff at the different schools. Sure. Elementary schools, I mean, we're down into almost one-to-one now.
We have in our 3rd and 4th grade, actually our kindergarten through 2nd grade classroom, or 2nd grade classroom, we have 2-to-1s with iPads. 3rd and 4th grade are 2-to-1s with Chromebooks, and 5th grade is a 1-to-1 with Chromebooks. Plus, we have some supplemental cards in the library, so classrooms can get to 1-to-1 when they need to. That's kind of where we're at right now. Part of that is, it's an interesting time and place. There's a lot of studies right now. A lot of the 1-to-1 research data, because 1-to-1s are fairly new. Finding what they're saying it's interesting. A lot of them come out. A lot of the research states that it definitely, obviously, having a 1-to-1 increases access to technology. Right? No kidding. But it also equals student engagement. The piece that's hard is, does it equal student achievement? And ultimately, what most of them find is what equals student achievement is quality instruction. And that doesn't necessarily mean a 1-to-1, just means do you have quality access. One of the things that you'll see in the plan that we're focusing on is communication, collaborating, problem solving. Sometimes it's the soft skills that Brian loves to talk about, is face-to-face physical. And that's something that I'm working on with our professional development is, do our kids know how to do that physically? Because we shouldn't expect them to do it virtually if they can't do it physically. And that's more important to me than a device count is the skill set.
Jimmy, what's the percentage of our bring your own device to school compared to Chromebooks at the high school?
We have about 40% bring your own device. So about 400 devices that are bring your own, which is a lot.
Mostly laptops?
A good mix, a lot of Chromebooks, a fair amount of, you have very, kids who are in the art fields, a lot of them have MacBooks. Our kids are in engineering, a lot of them have high-powered PCs. We have a few iPads here and there, but I would say the majority of devices up there are Chromebooks. Which has really, in the last 3 years, have really changed in education. Chromebooks have been the dominant device, A, because of cost, but B, because the Google world is just device neutral. So it really doesn't matter what your device is, you just need an internet connection.
One of the things that that I keep bringing it, I brought it up because I know it just had some issues with it between Valley View and Pioneer. That their Pioneer's got some 1-to-1s, 3rd and 4th grade, and Valley View's 2-to-1. I mean, have you had issues?
Well, what happened is, part of last year when we did our device audit, we found out that we had some discrepancies. We had a situation where Pioneer had almost a 1-to-1. Valley View had basically just about a 2-to-1, and Parkview was actually at a 4-to-1. And it came out loud and clear in that staff survey that we had teachers who had everyday access and we had teachers who had monthly access. So we looked at POs where those devices came from, and we found out that the reason why Pioneer actually had the discrepancy was many years ago we removed one of the computer labs and made it a guidance center. And to supplement that device count, we went mobile. So they basically got 50 netbooks in lieu of the cost of a lab. So for that matter, Pioneer always kind of had 50 devices above the normal ratio. So when we looked at this and looked at the discrepancy, and when we got through last year's budget, we tried to figure out how we could best get equitable, sustainable access. So we kind of did a device redistribution of district-owned devices and did our best to make it so, regardless of grade or building, most of our kids had a pretty equitable access to devices.
Okay.
And how is staff doing with integrating the technology into their lesson plans?
Well, it's a daily push. I mean, honestly, at the high school, I think now that we are in almost, year 7 of 1-to-1 from the first year, I would say it's becoming a thing where the device isn't necessarily the reason for the use. It's instruction. It's the kids are using it as if they'd use a pencil. Parkview, it's been transformative this year, because last year, like I said, there was times where they would go a month between lab settings and they'd be fighting over devices. And now what we've done is this year they have a cart of 15 in every classroom and in the core areas. So now the teachers they have daily access, and it's transforming. Now the problem is that we've got to give them time to lesson plan and figure out how to do that. So typically I would say at the high school I was almost 3 years into the 1-to-1 until it became everyday use of unplanned use, and that's the best use, is the unplanned use, because then it's just an everyday tool.
I think the balancing act for us is, going back to what Jenny said earlier about trying to treat all students equitably. If you're a parent and you have a child at all 3 levels, we talk about how can we balance an equal opportunity as far as technology to students. But then we also have the whole discussion about what I hear, and a lot of you might hear the same thing in the business world. What often do we hear some people say about people that are being hired? Sometimes they're very disappointed in the fact that they're not able to communicate, they're not on time. Those responsibility, collaborative skills, at what point in time do we have to sort of draw the line and decide the perfect balancing act would be a blend of the two? And Jamie said it better than I. They should be using a computer like they use a pencil. It's an instructional tool, but it's not a gadget that's something extra that, and that varies from individual to individual in the classroom. We're going to continue to offer more and more instructional techniques with technology, but that's the balancing act. I think that much like I think we would, if we were to weigh in this room about the importance of literacy and having a child read by 2nd or 3rd grade and the importance of their reading ability and literacy level top on the Richter scale in terms of predictability and their success in life. Try to look at blend the two together, so to speak.
Okay. Okay, so you basically just need the approval of the plan so that...
Correct, and so I can send the link to DPI until it gets formatted on there. And the other side of it, the library collections is something that needs to be board approved as well, and that's always just been a part of the tech plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the technology plan for 2016-18 timeframe.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 4, budget carryover. Keith?
Heard me say it every year for, well, Mark, you've probably heard it 16 years now. I think budget carryover is important for principals because it allows them to plan for bigger projects. It was 15 years ago that we eliminated capital equipment budgets at the building as one of our budget cuts. And the challenge was to the principals to be able to save money in their local control budget and use what they had unspent for the year to try and replace equipment, keep their building up to date. And it's worked very well. I think it helps staff buy into the fact that it's not a use it or lose it budget item. This year we have a little larger than what we've had in the past as far as amounts, but I've talked with all the principals. They all have a plan on what they're doing, and I'll pick on Brian Nelson from the high school because he and I talk the most. He's got the majority of that already identified how he's going to spend it. He's got, was it, Brian, about $7,000 left of your carryover that's hasn't been designated yet?
Yeah, with the referendum projects, we were really conservative with the capital spending during the school year, knowing that we were going to have to relocate student services and some of the other expenses that we were going to have to pick up. And then there's quite a bit of furniture replacement and those types of things, but I didn't want to cut things short, knowing that we're going to have some capital outlay expense as a result of some of the tweaks we're doing in the building to partner with the referendum projects. But like he said, we have that spent down to about $8,000 right now.
That was one of the questions that I had when I was going through it, when I saw the balances on there, on how much they were. Is you know, I don't have a, I like the idea of carrying over, so exactly what you explained. It, but it would be just helpful for me or us maybe to know what they want to spend it for, because if they identified it, I mean, the principals identify it, then quite frankly, if it's something that's that needed, and they have to have a budget carryover, I'm more, maybe we want to fund it.
Well, another example I can give you, Cormier, for example, hasn't had a lot of carryover in recent years. So furniture-wise, Maria's got a plan that she wants to start updating the furniture, because just you have to do that on a regular basis, and she hasn't been able to work it into her budget. So this year that's the plan. So it's going to be replacing tables and chairs and trying to update. And with 4K now in there, that building's pretty full. That there isn't a lot of there's a lot of furniture that really needs to be replaced. So if you want, I can have the principals put together a list of the major items they're planning. Realize they're not going to plan every penny of this carryover, because some of it also helps them seed money for the next year.
Right.
But they have plans. I've talked to them all, and they all have ideas. So we could get you something very quickly.
To me, the notion of local control is just that. It's kind of up to them. And we do have a dollar figure that has to come to the board, which is what, 10,000?
10,000, yeah.
Something like that. So either way, it works with me.
It just.
But I also saw the numbers too and wondered what was up. So my question is, are there things that used to be covered by local control that have been pushed out that have allowed for this?
No, if anything, 5 or 6 years ago, we added some things to what the local control had to cover.
Okay.
We gave them a little more money. It was when Dave Schmidt was here, we reshuffled the deck a little bit. So, for example, some of the building assigned, if they send staff out to training, they'll cover staff time or subs. Paper budgets were moved all out to the buildings because they really have control of how much paper they spend, so they can spend less. And part of me is hoping that things like that are part of it, that they're finding different ways to do things so they can be more efficient with their dollars. And with staff being aware that if I save $1, it doesn't just go back into the fund balance. Not that the fund balance is a bad thing, but staff doesn't see any benefit from that. If they know it stays in their building and they use it for something else, they're more likely to be cost efficient or to be more cost efficient.
Okay.
But we definitely will put together a list for you.
Okay. Do we have a motion on this? Budget carryover?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget carryover amounts as presented.
Second.
Good motion, a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Board and Superintendent Communications. Anybody have anything?
I just wanted to say thank you to the Parkview administration. I had a chance to go to their Parent-Teacher Association meeting about a week ago, maybe a little more than a week ago. And it was very enjoyable. I saw some very active parents, which was great, and a large number of them too. I thought there'd be 3 or 4 people there, and it turned out to be more like about a dozen. So that was great.
And same thing for Valley View. I was over there, and also to the high school, the Jaguar backers there. There's a lot of people up there that
And I think,
do a lot of things.
I think I'm coming to yours tomorrow night.
Correct. Okay. Future board meeting and topics. If there's anything that you want to see on the agenda, unless you got something right now, otherwise contact Brian, myself, or Dan, and we'll get around there. The next board meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 14th, 6:30 right here. Need a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
See what their plan was.